The first 3 weeks of the eruption here in Hawaii, crazy things would happen in the middle of the night. A new fissure would open up and it would threaten a new neighborhood. Thousands of people are evacuated from their homes. I started the Hawaii Tracker Facebook group to help people understand what's going on and get their questions answered.
Hey, how's it going? We're live. This is Fissure 20.
We had hundreds of people all throughout the neighborhoods sending in videos, articles, and images. We spend a lot of time making sure the accurate information gets out.
This is live. There's still lava moving.
They weren't just sharing a story, they were helping their neighbor. If a family was being evacuated, my group would just jump in and help out. So it was huge. They were watching out for each other.
Hello everybody, thank you for coming. Thank you for the support from everybody.
As we go through this, we're growing closer together as a community. When tragedies like this strike, you really realize how much you need each other.
Aloha everyone, I'm geologist Philip Ong, here with Mr. Dane DuPont of HawaiiTracker.com, bringing you guys another Hawaiian Volcano Tracker update. Today is Thursday, April 6, 2023. There's not been a whole lot of change, honestly, Dane, with our volcanoes, either Kilauea or Mauna Loa. A few subtle things that we'll cover as usual, and some community events as well as Tsunami Awareness Month, now April 2023. So that's our agenda today. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing pretty good. You know, it's kind of quiet out there, so getting to work on other things.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, Dan will be collecting questions to discuss along the way. He'll be also leading discussion on chat. And if there's anything else?
We do stick around because we do have a little bit of a feature on the 1946 and 1960 tsunamis. So, talk about those a little bit more later.
Right, and we'll include more tsunami coverage, tsunami awareness coverage over the course of the month. So we just thought I'd give you guys a little intro here today with a little bit of the most relevant ones historically for Hilo side here at least. So that said, let's get things going here with our Hawaiian volcano summary. So I just thought I'd just first off just share with you guys what's on the screen here. This is a live stream from Kilauea from about an hour and a half ago. There's been some rain today passing through, some sun, so you see this nice rainbow here drifting over Kilauea summit here. Just a little intro eye candy for you guys. But this week's Hawaiian Volcano summary is much the same as last week's. We have on Kilauea continuing earthquakes at elevated rates. You see here the rate from prior to the pause. That was about just 1 month ago now. About half the rate as we've seen in the more recent weeks here. So earthquakes still remain elevated at Kilauea summit. The interesting thing is if we look at the GPS signals, this is the Uekahuna station on Kilauea's north rim, and focusing on the vertical component here in this bottom panel, and all the way to the right side here. This is about the last month or so, this area right in here, and what you can see is that the vertical component's been rising. That's really one of the key things on Kilauea. Not only is the ground shaking, the tilt has been up and down with inflations, and hard to tell the slight inflationary pattern otherwise. But you can see that especially at greater depth, and on a GPS you can see quite clearly that the ground has been rising as well as quaking around Kilauea. So the expectation is that Kilauea could still resume its activity at any point in time. It could happen pretty quickly, but there's no signs of that happening quite yet. On Mauna Loa, it's been much of the same as well. However, this is the tilt plot for the last month on Mauna Loa summit. And what you can see here is that just in the last few days, this upward rise that's been fairly steady for much of the last month and beyond, that is normal, part of the refilling of Mauna Loa's magma chamber following its eruption in late 2022. That rate seems to have slowed a little bit in the last few days here. And this might be a temporary feature. It may keep going higher in the future once again. Variability is a natural thing to happen and fits into this post-eruptive recharge pattern of the volcano. So really there's nothing new there as well, and no cause for increased concern from either volcano to people. And that's the Hawaiian Volcano summary for the week. So we can get into a little bit more detail here, but just to make sure we cover our bases as usual, let's give credit where it's due here to the USGS HVO, Hawaiian Volcano Observatory. We're providing all these reports and webcams and graphs and all of that we're using to help explain to you guys what's happening and flesh out what they're saying in our updates here. But here's a source. Here's today's update, Thursday, April 6th from 9:25 a.m. We're still at alert level advisory, aviation code yellow. The volcano is not erupting. The summit's been paused since March 7th, so today, April 6th, we're just about a month in. Lava is no longer flowing in the crater floor. Over the past day, no significant changes observed along either of the volcano's rift zones. No active lava over the past 24 hours. Tilt meters got very little tilt. There's still deflation-inflation events ongoing. The most recent SO2 emission rate was approximately 110 tons per day on April 5th, yesterday. So this is a new value being reported. A little bit lower than before. Still in that low background range. No surprise there. So that's really it. Not a whole lot to report on Kilauea. But to make sure we show it in different ways here. Here's the last week of earthquakes, and this is fitting the pattern we've seen recently. So there is a summit earthquakes underneath that inner caldera area, and also tailing off to this upper southwest rift and south of the caldera in the Kauai rift zone, Kauai fault zone, I'm sorry, here to the south of the caldera, right? That's the little triangle zone that exists back in here below the summit, south of the summit. So that's the earthquakes for the last week. I'll move it to the last month, and it looks similar to last week's plot, and this little cloud at the summit is continuing to be filled in and populated. So you see the overall longer term pattern here. That's the area that's pressurizing and moving south of Kilauea summit. So that's really interesting because we have the summit filling right through here, and it seems like it's putting some pressure to the south. We know that this whole area that's between that southwest rift zone and southeast rift zone is that south flank that moves to the south over here. And it does appear like we're having some interesting propagation of this push to the south flank, somewhere in the vicinity of the east rift over here by the Puʻuʻōʻō station, which is right around in there on the right side of this map over here. We'll look at that here shortly, but just to show you guys once again this pattern of earthquakes, and likewise this big cloud that's just to the south of it here, that's that continuing south flank movement. So you can see that there's certainly been south flank adjustment over the last month. Not only that, you see especially these two large earthquakes right here, there and there, these two big clusters. And you can see that is positioned right around where this bend occurs, right? So the south flank is moving over here, and then it has this strange change in geometry. So when you see adjustments happening right in here, it can lead to differential adjustment between that block and the one over here, perhaps, right? Which might go that way or might spin around or do something funny like that. So that's the background for the last month. I have on here the plots in cross-section and over depth time, but really you don't see a whole lot of detail here. It's been fairly steady since that post-pause period just about a month ago right here. Here's that 1 month earthquakes plot we just looked at, and it's starting to get fairly similar. This is that little intrusion event that we had on the 11th, and that background level prior to that. So here's our new elevated baseline. Not super high. We've seen these rates jump to 4 or 5 times this lower background level in the past, so we're only at 2 times that. But it's still enough, and considering all the changes the volcano has gone through, it seems to be the current elevated state where it's shaking and swelling and getting ready to burst. We may not see it jump up that much higher than this until it's actually ready to go and pop out. We'll have to wait and see what it actually does, of course. That's just the pattern we're examining and witnessing here so far. Looking at the 1 month tilt, you see a lot of these deflation-inflation cycles dominating the signal here. So sometimes it's more useful to try to define an envelope around the high points and the low points. So there's that high point. It seems like it might be slightly rising. The low points may be decreasing or flattening here more recently, but other than that, also rising. You can see that there's a little bit of a artistic license you take here because some of the deflation-inflation events aren't as big as the other ones, and so you can either consider those to be faster variations, or you have to just somehow average that out, right? So without getting into the details of that, which maybe is inconsequential, really the overall pattern to me looks like it's maybe still slightly inflating here. That would be consistent with the GPS that we just showed you guys, and the earthquakes that are elevated here as well, but not quite as clear in a tilt as you see on a GPS. It's something we can say, though. Here's the whole last year of earthquakes, and now that it's been about a month, you can see this cluster of 4 bars on the right. That's the last month of elevated activity following the pause, which occurs right here. And you see that's that previous lower background level. Here's a pre-January 2023 elevated activity, so that would be when it's really quite a bit more elevated, and we're seeing it right now. So that's what preceded the last breakout of lava was these levels. But you can see that prior to that, during that longer lasting, back from September 2021 through the rest of 2022, it was at these similar elevated rates that you see back through here. So what you see recently now, a little bit higher, maybe in the same ballpark, but maybe slightly higher on average. So it does seem like it's in some new state adjusting and building towards breaking out, but does not seem to be imminently ready to do so quite yet. Here is our distance in GPS across Kilauea summit to start with. And remember, this is a 1 year plot, so we'll zoom way into the right side here. And what you're seeing is that it's still increasing, showing the sides of the caldera are getting further apart. Magma is still coming in, swelling underneath the volcano summit and pushing those 2 areas apart. So they're spreading apart. That's one of the signals that's indicative of magma coming into an area. So we've been checking for a long time as well, that Middle East Rift Zone, Upper Middle East Rift Zone by Puʻuʻōʻō. And here it is once again, over the same last year. And now we can see that there's a little bit of a different pattern. It does seem like it maybe is not dropping quite as quickly. We have seen short-term variations occur in the past. There and there, for example, before the signal rights itself, and these are often these smaller scale, shorter-term variations and adjustments of the south flank. It could be something like that is happening here. We'll have to wait and see how the signal adjusts in the long term, whether it keeps moving the south flank in such a way that the rift zone is still closing, or whether that starts changing at some point in the future here. But I thought this would be a good time to actually break out and look at these GPS plots a little bit separately to show you guys a difference, because this signal, even though it does show extension in an upper Middle East rift zone, is not the same indicative pattern of magma coming in. In fact, it's the opposite of that. You can't tell that from this plot alone. You have to go to the earthquakes as well, so as well as the actual components of the GPS. So let's look at the GPS components. We know that earthquakes are low over there. Within the rift itself, we noticed that they were more active in the south flank, just south of there. So low earthquakes. And let's look at the difference between the summit GPS stations. And so what I have here, these 4 plots, that's northwest of the summit at Oikahuna, northeast, or east, call it, at Byron's Ledge, southeast at Crater Rim, and southwest at Outlet. that distance measurement goes between these two stations there and there. And so we're going to focus on, if you haven't seen this before or followed us to see this kind of GPS plot before, these are now broken out into 3 components. This is the east-west component, north-south component, and up and down component. So that distance that's measuring going across is measuring that net difference all the way from one to the other, right? But we can focus in a little bit more detail. And on a vertical, this is what I showed you guys in a summary, that Uikahuna is rising at a pretty decent clip here, right? Showing magmas coming in. And if I go to the other station on the far other side at the crater rim, here's its vertical. And it is also rising, maybe not quite as fast, but also convincingly rising as well. So the ground is swelling on both sides of the caldera. Let's just round it out. Here is that eastern side of Byron's Ledge, also rising, a little bit more variability in there, but still overall rising. And coming here to the outlet on the southwest, not quite as dramatic, but an upward trend nonetheless, rising as well. And so everything around the summit is rising. And as I scroll down here on the East Rift, you see that the other patterns are all downwards. This is that Mauna Loa area, Kaneohamo area going downwards here, Kamoamoa area going downwards here. This is Puʻuʻōʻō. So Puʻuʻōʻō distance measurement goes between this station, which you can see is moving downwards still. And also this other station at Jacuzzi, which if I zoom into it, is also still generally moving downwards. You see maybe a slight variation on a small scale right through here, but that's nothing noteworthy that really exceeds this range of variability of data we see prior here. So we're really seeing the change that's more notable here is looking at this Jacuzzi, which is that further south on the south flank, south of Puʻuʻōʻō. Its north-south component was moving south more quickly, and now is moving south less quickly. And that's one change you can note right there that's happened since November or so. Right, which would then lead you to suspect that Mauna Loa may have some part in this as well. Mauna Loa is a big mountain. Kilauea sits against the side of Mauna Loa. If Mauna Loa is adjusting, Kilauea then has that knock-on secondary effect as well, and it can go all the way to its south flank. So that seems to be a suspect in what's going on here. But what we can say is the ground is not rising on either side of the rift zone there. There's no earthquakes, and even though we see that distance getting slightly larger there, that's the nuance of the volcano monitoring, to then understand that that's not a magmatic signal because doesn't have all the different components you need, right? It's a similar thing in Mauna Loa where we see just one signal, the inflation, but we don't see the earthquakes or anything else like that. So that's why it makes it a little tricky, but that's just one small interesting detail for this week here. Otherwise, if I look elsewhere on the south flank, these are the stations that are closer to the summit in that little triangle just south by the Kauai. That's rising at Ahua. Puhimau also rising. When you get down to Devil's Throat, it's not quite as convincing. It seems like it might be rising slightly, but certainly not as much as you saw at the other stations here. And then if you continue further south along that south flank area, maybe a little bit Idaho, but really further south, you don't see that effect quite as much in any of the other stations. Everything else is still fairly within normal bounds there. So that all seems to fit together. It's really that area that's just south of the summit that's showing that most dramatic adjustment, which is consistent with the area of earthquakes we're seeing as well. So it all fits together quite nicely. And that wraps up the monitoring here for this week. So on to our visual observations on Kilauea. Here is the thermal camera from the USGS HVO F1 camera. And you still see some heat signal coming through here in this West Vent Pond area. That's just the run of the remnant. Think of it as a chimney down to that lava that's beneath this crusted crater floor here. So not a whole lot of change there, nothing new to see really. We can show you guys the visuals from this last week. Similar to last week, you see complete blackness in the nighttime. You see the fume blowing with the wind in the daytime. You see the clouds blowing by. You'll see some weather come through as well. And this particular animation, I've kept the nighttime views in there just because one of these days we're hoping to see through the night some big glow or redness or orange cut through there. And this is just setting our baseline once again. Right? It's one of the things that these pauses in eruption help us do is understand what the baseline and background activity can be compared to what it's like during eruptions itself. So there it is, ending with that rainbow that we're caught up with here today. We started off our program sharing with you guys. And once again, I'll share the V1 camera here, and once again I've put out just the daytime views to give a better, more smooth understanding of what's happening on that crater floor there. So quite a lot of fume still coming out of the usual places, and not a whole lot of change in the surface really there. Some nice rainbows, of course. So those are our visual observations, and as a result, as you might imagine, the lava viewing report is not great because there's no lava at the surface right now. We refer to the National Park website here. They're updating it pretty often here. No lava or nighttime glow is visible from any overlooks since the eruption paused on March 7th after 61 days of activity. So all the links are as usual there. If something does change in the next week, this is where you want to go and check for closures and all of that. But that is a very brief lava viewing report for this week. Still great views, great areas to explore in a national park that you might not get to if you were so focused on going and seeing eruption. So if you're here anyways to see the volcano, there's all kinds of areas that are off the beaten path that are really fascinating that you may not get a chance to explore otherwise, and still great to come and visit the park. It's just not a red lava week here as it appears to be. All right, so that's the viewing. If you are coming or in an area, you also need to know what the volcanic hazards are. That is still largely the VOG coming from the volcano. The gas emissions are low, but there are still of some concern to local residents, especially visitors and volcano area communities in the recent week here. This is the VOG mapping project forecast for the next couple of days here. You see there's really not a whole lot. It's largely because this SO2 emission rate is so low at 110 tons per day. So while there are effects, they're really not as widespread as they usually are. If I zoom in here, you might see an occasional patch of orange puff up right in there, and that's about the bulk of it there. So not a lot to talk about in the VOG. That's good. It still can be a nuisance or an actual real concern if you're caught in that wrong place at the wrong time, even if it's just passing, since there's not as much coming out. Here's a Purple Air Citizen Science Network report, and everything in the green. That does seem to match up as well once again. But to show you guys how you can have those localized effects, here is a national park charts. And so we'll scroll down here for the last couple of days. You can see mostly in the green, 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 green. And once in a while you pick out one of these. Here's steam vents, SO2, that seemed to peak at 11:30 p.m. Last night, 11:30 to 12 p.m. or so, at orange levels, unhealthy for sensitive groups, right? Kuka Mahua Kea steam vents SO2 plot right here. I think that's the only one we see that's orange on here, but just to show that it can sweep through in one area or another. Of course, follow park guidance, but you can also retreat to safety, and current conditions are not keeping it around that long. So that's the hazard summary for this week. And we'll move on to our earthquakes here. Here is our latest earthquakes for the last week on Hawaii Island. You see these are colored by time now, so the red would be within the last couple hours. There's nothing registering here within the last couple of days, only a couple of these orange dots here and here. And everything else is older within the past week. Quite a few adjustment earthquakes here in Mauna Loa's northwest flank. There's a 3.8 that was 12 kilometers down, pretty close to South Kīlauea over here. And other ones here is Mauna Kea settling one much deeper down, 2.7, and northwest of Mauna Loa, 3.0 here. But these are all just normal one-offs, settling earthquakes, and you can see a lot of smaller ones. You can imagine as one big chunk of the mountain moves, it can cause smaller adjustments elsewhere. So that's all normal. If it were happening every day, every week, it would be something else. But just to see it move a little bit once in a while, it's just something we'll note and keep an eye on in the future, but doesn't seem to in itself be of great concern there. So really not a whole lot additional to talk about. There's a pattern on Kilauea. Mauna Loa, Pahala still has its activity ongoing as well. It seems to have slowed down slightly here in the last couple of days. We'll see if this slowdown is something that precedes some burst in activity. We've seen that in the past sometimes and sometimes not. So we'll see. Like we said before, the SGS keeps saying it could happen pretty quickly at any point in time, or it could still last a while. We've hit our over-under of 1 month, Dane. And a month ago we talked about this, and what was our over-under? And here we are at our over-under, so it doesn't seem like it's going any over. And still not really showing a sign of gearing up, so we'll just have to wait and see how much longer chooses to take to actually reactivate or erupt anew, whichever it chooses to do here. So that is Kilauea. Do we have any Kilauea in particular questions that we want to throw in here, Dane, before we get to Mauna Loa and the rest of the program?
I don't believe so right now. We've been just having a discussion about Southwest Resumption a little bit and some of the previous eruptions there. But yeah, we'll grab some and get you them at the end if there are any.
All right, sounds good. Well, in that case, I will just keep on moving. We'll touch base on Mauna Loa monitoring next here. So let's put that up on a screen. Get the right visual for you guys here, and let's look at the monitoring signals. Here's that tilt plot we showed for the last month, showing there is those diurnal day and night variations up and down all through here. You see they die off a little bit, but the overall pattern is what we're looking for. Right, this long inflation, and then more recently here, in the last few days, a little bit more even. So it could be that it stays flattened out for a while and then re-increases. We're not really sure how this is all going to play out because honestly, we didn't have this resolution in the past for previous eruptions of Mauna Loa. We did see that they continued inflating and swelling after the eruptions, but we didn't have data every single day of the following months. After it was like 1 month, you'd have a data point, and a few months go by, another data point. So these little nuances are all something that's new for us to see this resolution. It's interesting to note that. And none of this seems really that unexpected, really, right? And most notably, earthquake rates on Mauna Loa summit here are still down. This upper value is 8 earthquakes per day. So see, we've actually only had 2 earthquakes per day in the summit region here, and all of this is with a really low region. It's hard to tell unless you zoom out to the last year. Here's the last year showing build up to the eruption in late November. That earlier earthquake swarm that began back in October, and current levels are all down in here, and barely visible in the graph. And in map form, for the whole last month, there is that southeast flank of Mauna Loa showing small dots. Maybe you can see some of those. There they are. And then those larger one-off adjustments on the northwest side here, but nothing really dramatic happening on Mauna Loa. So that's the Mauna Loa monitoring signals here. Mauna Loa's update today is the monthly update that came out, so we have that benefit today. And it's no surprise there. It's new activity on Mauna Loa during the past month. At background levels, both events smaller than 2. The largest earthquake was a 3.9 that occurred during a small swarm on a Kauiki southeast flank on March 23rd. That's one we discussed last week and a week before. Most swarm events occurred at depths from 1.2 miles above sea level to 5 miles below sea level. Data from GPS instruments show slow inflation as magma replenishes its cement reservoir system, and otherwise no significant changes in gas or temperature from the southwest rift zone or elsewhere here. So that's the Mauna Loa update for the month, and actually the larger update was Mauna Loa update several small magnitude earthquakes, previous normal there. Second looks like another over here. Yes, seconds. Tell me if you hear me at some point again, Dane. I'm not sure what's going on here. Testing, testing. Apologies, everyone, if you can hear me.
In and out.
All right, that looks a little more stable. Can you hear me, Dane?
Yeah. Let's see if if YouTube's going again. Kinda.
Yeah, apologies, you guys. Yeah, we hit a bad lag spike right there. I'm not sure what happened. Where was I before you saw me cut out? Dane?
You lost like 2 minutes or 3 minutes of your Mauna Loa spiel, including the end of it.
At what point was that? I'm not really sure.
Oh, I'm not sure.
Well, we'll just recap the Mauna Loa text update here from the USGS, which is here. Right, so the part of the monthly update from the USGS here. And really not a whole lot of changes. I refer to the small swarm in the Kīlauea fault area, that 3.9 from 2 weeks ago here. And otherwise, slow inflation as magma replenishes the summit reservoir system, and no other changes notable on Mauna Loa. This is part of the monthly update from the USGS, so it does include Hualai, also no significant changes to see. It does show as well Haleakala, no significant activity as well. Mauna Kea, no significant activity. That does have background earthquakes, 14 in the last month is normal. And Kamaehua Kanaloa, formerly known as Loihi, also within normal ranges. 10 earthquakes in the past month, on par with previous months, representative background levels. And this does include those magnitude 3.1, 4.1 on March 26 that were in that 4 to 6 miles below sea level area, possibly adjustments of that volcano's flank or some magma intrusion. Hard to tell without more instrumentation and data there. That is the full monthly update from USGS for all our monthly update volcanoes. And that concludes the volcano update part of the program here. And next we'll turn to the USGS Weekly Volcano Watch, which this week is highlighting April as Tsunami Awareness Month in Hawaii. So this is interesting. Governor Green recently proclaimed that April is again Tsunami Awareness Month for the state of Hawaii, not to be confused with World Tsunami Awareness Day, which is November 5th. Still, we get our whole month here in Hawaii. And the reason why we do this in April is because it was back on April 1st, 1946. The April Fool's Day tsunami was one of the most destructive fatal earthquakes and tsunami combinations, especially here for Hawaii. This is showing a different kind of earthquake. This is from the 75 earthquake at Halape, showing inundation of that campground area where there were 2 casualties from that local event. And I do, through here, detail the different kinds of tsunami that you can actually have. So the basics are that tsunami are generated by earthquakes that are occurring underwater or near shore in order to displace and move that water in such a way that it can cause a ripple wave effect that then travels across the ocean and impacts further shorelines. So here they're noting that the 1946 earthquake was a magnitude 8.6 near Alaska with maximum run-up. In Hilo, they're noting here actually 55 feet and 158 people perishing across the state. Locally, near the epicenter in Alaska, the run-up was 138 feet on Unimak Island. So we're seeing some different run-up numbers, but presume this is the more current, updated version, 55 feet here. And I do note that most of the earthquakes occur along subduction zones around the Pacific Rim. That's often that area known as a Ring of Fire. That's a combination of earthquakes and volcanoes occurring around the Pacific Basin there. And that's where they can occur and then come across that ocean towards Hawaii in a matter of whether it's 4.5, 6, 12 hours, depending exactly where they're coming from. You do have some hours there to get warnings out and prepare the population for that impact. Now, because 46 and 60 were so long ago, there wasn't quite fleshed out of the warning system. The residents weren't quite as savvy to what those warnings meant, or didn't evacuate necessarily according to those signals. So we'll touch on that here a little bit when we play you guys a little bit of video excerpt from our tsunami coverage that we've done in the past. But examples of those Ring of Fire earthquakes would be that both of those 1960 from Chile, 1946 from Alaska. More recently, the Japan earthquake in 2011, 9.1, caused an 18-foot run-up in Hawaii a few hours after the earthquake. However, it doesn't have to come from an earthquake that's distant. For something that's distant but not an earthquake, you have the Hunga Tonga eruption there that occurred back in 2022. Massive tsunami in local areas there, close to Tonga, but also came all the way to Hawaii, right? So maybe a 1 or 2 foot run-up, even though nearby it was 60 feet or so by Tonga. So that's something that can happen. You have the Tsunami Awareness Center tsunami warning center there, monitoring and checking to make sure that nothing like that's coming towards Hawaii as well. But really, the most dangerous events are those like that 75 earthquake, which was a 7.7 by current calculations. And in that case, you really only have a few minutes to respond on Hawaii Island. You might have up to 15, 20 minutes on other Hawaiian islands, but really you have to be aware of that potential and know that if you're by the ocean and you feel the ground move, have trouble standing, that's a big enough earthquake to generate a tsunami. And that's when you need to just take action to self-evacuate to higher ground, and not wait for any warning to come, not wait for a siren, right? That kind of information can reinforce after you're getting yourself moving, but you don't want to wait for someone else to tell you what to do in that situation. Likewise, while we're on a tsunami PSA, if you're by the ocean and you see the water receding away towards exposing the seabed and the fish are flopping around, it's another sign that the wave is building to come back in. So not a whole lot of time there. You want to turn around and go to high ground, certainly, as well. We'll do more coverage as far as preparedness and what you do in the situation if a tsunami were to come in the future. We have the rest of the month to deal with awareness, but we thought I would just throw those few things out here just in a random case something does happen. In between here, we can share what's really important. You want to throw in here, Dane?
Yeah, just one little thing about the, because I've had some experience with people that, the evacuation order is issued for a tsunami, right? We've had a few of those. And when it says go to high ground, you only got to go up a little bit, right? We're not talking significant, a mile inland and you're fine basically around the island. I can't think of anywhere where a mile's going to get you in trouble. But I've had people that run all the way up to Saddle Road, up to the visitor station on Mauna Loa, because they're like, how high of ground do we need to go to? Type of thing. The thing is that a lot of these areas as tsunami areas, there's actually signs up to tell you like, yeah, you're pretty much high enough here, basically. And those signs aren't that far inland, usually.
Yeah, so it certainly can vary. I want to say that the historical impacts in Hilo, we'll look at those a little closely in the future as well. I want to say that in Hilo, the tsunami's making inland maybe 3 to 4 blocks-ish, more or less, right? So you're not having to go even a mile, but you gain ground fairly quickly, right? But if you're somewhere like Waipio or Waimanu Valley, then it might be a little bit more sketchy.
Yeah,
it might go a mile inland, areas like that if it funnels in. Kind of depends which direction the wave's coming from and all of that, right? So that's kind of where you need
an interesting spot.
You need to be aware of. Yeah, there's big dunes over there, right on Waimanu Valley that are deposits of past tsunamis as well. So you've been there. You can clearly see how high the water is dropping the sand in there. So things. There are certain trouble spots.
Even there, it'll run a mile back, but if you were able to get a mile, in the other direction, type of 90 degrees, you'd be way up the hill, type of thing. It's There's
100 feet up the
these
hill.
Spots that are 100 feet up the hill and you're fine. But there's these spots like Halape was, right, where it's vulnerable to that type of thing, and then you get that ground motion and all that. It can get pretty crazy.
Yeah, the thing with Halape that's on the screen here is that not only was there the earthquake, but the ground actually subsided and dropped into the ocean as well. So not only do you have the actual ocean getting displaced, you now have a new lower baseline for the water to come into, which previously you were on above sea level, and now you're not above sea level, and then a wave is coming at you. That's double bad. And that's kind of if you're right by the shore and you're right at the epicenter, that can be the most dramatic thing that can happen. Right, and that's why I say if you're by the ocean, you're having trouble standing during an earthquake, that's the sign that's one of those, that something's shifting enough. And as soon as you can start moving again, because you may not be able to because the ground is shaking from the earthquake, once you can, then get yourself to high ground as quickly as possible there.
And we've seen that type of thing on the south side, the south flank of Kilauea. The Puʻuʻōʻō, following, the 1924 quake, had a large movement of the ground.
Well,
and what in the 70s, another
75
down
all the way.
75. So you can get these big movements with these quakes, but they're pretty much, you have to be right in the wrong area type of thing, wrong place, wrong time to really get that type of situation. It's not mass scale or anything like that. It's you're at the wrong beach and you just got hit, the wrong type of earthquake.
Right. So that's The volcano watch, we'll just leave that on here as we keep showing tsunami. And what I thought I'd do now is just play for you guys a few minutes of excerpted from our video that we produced several years ago now, detailing different disasters on Hawaii Island. So it's a little bit of quick recap of the 46 tsunami and the 1960 tsunami. So I'll play this for you guys right here.
The April Fool's Day tsunami of 1946 struck the northern shores of the Hawaiian Islands, costing the lives of 159 people. A magnitude 8.6.
I'm gonna pause it and see if I can get it to get any louder here. Doesn't seem like it's getting super loud. But here, I'll try it again.
Seemed okay.
Okay.
The April Fool's Day tsunami of 1946 struck the northern shores of the Hawaiian Islands, costing the lives of 159 people. A magnitude 8.6 earthquake near the Aleutian Islands off the coast of Alaska generated a roughly 50-foot wave that traveled almost 500 miles an hour across the Pacific Ocean. It took less than 5 hours for the tsunami to reach Hilo, Hawaii. Some residents saw the signs of what was coming and self-evacuated, while others went towards the shoreline to witness the tsunami firsthand. In the hour immediately prior to the tsunami's arrival, an alert was issued over a police radio in Hilo to begin evacuations. The first surges from the tsunami were relatively small. However, following surges filled the bay with a great big black wall of water that flooded the residential area of Shamanshi and Hilo. The tsunami came ashore with several powerful surges, destroying almost a third of the city. Multiple railway bridges connecting Hilo to the island's sugarcane industry failed, forcing a change to heavy trucks for sugarcane transportation. The Hamakua sugar mill was also destroyed by the tsunami. Lapahoihoi, about 20 miles north of Hilo, was decimated, the local school included, claiming the lives of 23 students, 4 teachers in the process. Today, a memorial in Lapahoihoi commemorates the events and the tragic loss of life from the 1946 tsunami in stone. One incredible survivor from the 1946 tsunami, a 16-year-old freshman from Lapahoihoi High School, was washed out to sea as the powerful surges from the tsunami receded. Scrambling in the debris, he cobbled together a makeshift
Yeah, I can hear you. I can't get the stream up. All right, we're back, I think, but we got a ton of stream delay on there. Can try.
I think I might have been muted on the stream the whole time. So here, sorry about the delay, you guys. Let's give this video a shot one more time, and hopefully we'll clear. All right, here we go.
The April Fool's Day tsunami of 1946 struck the northern shores of the Hawaiian Islands, costing the lives of 159 people. A magnitude 8.6 earthquake near the Aleutian Islands off the coast of Alaska generated a roughly 50-foot wave that traveled almost 500 miles an hour across the Pacific Ocean. It took less than 5 hours for the tsunami to reach Hilo, Hawaii. Some residents saw the signs of what was coming and self-evacuated, while others went towards the shoreline to witness the tsunami firsthand. In the hour immediately prior to the tsunami's arrival, an alert was issued over a police radio in Hilo to begin evacuations. The first surges from the tsunami were relatively small. However, following surges filled the bay with a great big black wall of water that flooded the residential area of Shimanshi and Hilo. The tsunami came ashore with several powerful surges, destroying almost a third of the city. Multiple railway bridges connecting Hilo to the island's sugarcane industry failed, forcing a change to heavy trucks for sugarcane transportation. The Hamakua sugar mill was also destroyed by the tsunami. Lapahoihoi, about 20 miles north of Hilo, was decimated, the local school included, claiming the lives of 23 students, 4 teachers in the process. Today, a memorial in Lapahoihoi commemorates the events and the tragic loss of life from the 1946 tsunami in stone. One incredible survivor from the 1946 tsunami, a 16-year-old freshman from Lapahoihoi High School, was washed out to sea as the powerful surges from the tsunami receded. Scrambling in the debris, he cobbled together a makeshift raft, and soon saw fellow students struggling in the currents, barely conscious. He dragged 2 other boys onto the salvaged raft. The currents carried the boys northwest, with nobody knowing their situation, until a search aircraft spotted the boys, dropped them a life raft, 2 collapsible oars, and snapped a photo. Battling the occasional shark, the boys drifted along the coast. The next day, a small girl spotted the boys off the coastline, more than 40 miles from Lapahoihoi, and ran to get help. 3 local men immediately swam out and brought the boys back to shore. All 3 boys survived. In response to the 1946 tsunami, the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center was created to make a standardized and effective warning system for future tsunamis. In addition to the loss of life, there was $27 million in damages. Adjusted for today, that's roughly $340 million.
The 1960 tsunami in Hawaii was caused by the largest earthquake ever recorded, a magnitude 9.5 quake in May 1960 that sent destructive tsunami across the Pacific Ocean. After taking more than 2,000 lives in Chile, the tsunami radiated outward, killing 61 people in Hawaii and 122 in Japan. Warnings from the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center were issued during the 15 hours it took for the waves to arrive in Hawaii. Tragically, a lack of understanding of the warnings led to the major loss of life when the tidal wave ran ashore in the night. There was plenty of time for evacuation in Hilo, Hawaii, as the Chilean tsunami raced across the Pacific Ocean on May 22, 1960. Although warning sirens sounded for more than 3 hours before the first waves arrived, the meaning of the signals was not clear, as 2/3 of residents thought there would be further notice to evacuate. When the first waves arrived, only a few feet high, many residents remained in the low-lying areas of Hilo, and some even returned home thinking the danger had passed. Hours later, the darkness was filled by a growing rumbling noise, and soon sounds of crashing and crunching. Moments later, a nearly 20-foot wall of water hit the houses, floating them off their foundations. The 1960 tsunami destroyed the residential area of Shinmachi in Hilo for the second time in 2 decades, and this time it would not be rebuilt. Though the dynamic landscape of Hawaii poses its threats, many people still choose to live on the island, and awareness of its dangers is part of the price of living in paradise. Alright, so that's a little clip there from a video we produced in the past here, and I thought I'd just show, this is obviously dated here, but it's something that's still online. Maximum run-up values in Hawaii in different areas. So 1946 in Aleutian Islands, we do have 35 feet shown in Hilo here. We have seen a USGS report of 55 feet. You do see Molokai had 54 feet, Kauai had 45 feet, Oahu had 36 feet. So it really got all the islands to different degrees. South Point 20 feet. On the Kona side, you get 14, 12, 13. Not as big an impact on the Kona side as a Hilo side. Really on Hawaii Island, and really leeward to windward disparity across most of the islands here, in fact, as well. Although you see these northern facing areas do get quite a bit of impact as well, too. So that was 46. You see a similar pattern in 1960. You get that 135 here in Hilo, and other values not quite as large, although you do have a few in the teens on the Hilo side here. Few in the teens on the Kona side, maximum 16, 17 at South Point, and Na'alehu down there. Other islands didn't get quite as much. You see 15 on Maui, you see 13 on Oahu, you see 14 on Kauai there, right? So bigger impact in Hilo than most of the other places in that particular event from Chile earthquake in 1960. So that's the run up, and I just thought I would mention that if you go and look at that Volcano Watch article that's posted on HawaiiTracker.com, there's a link in there that leads to this International Tsunami Information Center that has quite a bit of good information here. This is operated out of Honolulu and associated with the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. So they do know Tsunami Awareness Month in Hawaii. They note here all different events that have had impact, whether it's death or damage in Hawaii back to 1837. See a list of those all through here. We can dive into this at some point in the future once again. But there they are. It's interesting here, you know, sometimes even indirect fatalities from an airplane crash near Oahu in 57 here. There is a poster for upcoming Tsunami Awareness Hazard Preparation Workshop that occurs on Saturday the 22nd of April, 1 to 4 p.m. at the Pacific Tsunami Museum in Hilo, free and open to the public, with speakers from University of Hawaii, Sea Grant, NOAA, Civil Defense, and Pacific Tsunami co-founder oceanographer here, Dr. Walt Dudley, as well. So that's all great. They're also offering, in case you're an educator, they have a place you can contact to schedule classroom activity for grades 2 to 6 there. 45-minute presentation that they do online there, and all kinds of other stuff. Schedule for the events at Tsunami Awareness Month, both on Big Island and Oahu and Maui, elsewhere statewide. A lot of good stuff there. I'll just leave that scrolled, and at the very top here, this is something I thought they did pretty well. They have this rotating graphic here of all these different facts and maps, and you can click at any one of these and get it blown up. Places tsunami have actually come from. We might go into more detail on this in the future here, but you see it all summarized. Tsunami waves ramping up in size, even though they slow down coming onto shore. Signs of tsunami: feel, see, hear, run. Right, feel the earthquake, see unusual disappearance of water. Sometimes you can hear booming sounds. Video of the earthquake in 2011 from Japan. Samoa Islands, earthquake and tsunami. Right, that Tonga explosion there. In Indonesia, where they have local tsunamis with earthquake waves arriving in minutes before any warnings go off. We'll certainly come back to that one. Indonesia, 2004. Great waves. Some other events here. Warning system. Wave exercises. Turkey, Papua New Guinea. Let's see what else is. Some other ones I wanted to highlight here. Back to 45. Here's a Hawaiian proverb from Mary Kevin Pukui: a person who fails to watch out often loses, never turn your back to the sea. There's different areas. Aleutians can reach Hawaii in 4 to 5 hours, Japan about 8 hours, Chile might be 12. So here's an example of that 46 tsunami area. And then locally, from Hawaii Island, 5 minutes to Hawaii Island, or 35 to 40 minutes for Kauai, and that's the range, right, that you would expect from local tsunami generated off of Hawaii Island there. So I think we might have maybe looped all the way through, perhaps. I'm not quite sure there, but just a little bit more in case you want to explore more with the Tsunami Awareness Month ahead of our further coverage of it here. So that is the Volcano Watch and Tsunami Awareness Month. Just one last group of items. It's our community items to share with you guys today before we sign off here.
Before you do that, I just wanted to one last little thing about that. It was surprising to me looking at that, going through it, just like how many big earthquakes came from the Sakhalin obelisk, the island just east of Russia, the big one. Like in that area, it's like, oh, that's a hot spot right there.
Yeah, there certainly are certain areas that generate a lot of earthquakes, and then some of those are also good tsunami generator areas as well. So for sure, when you have one earthquake in those areas, and maybe that's something we can look at in the future, is what are the historical hotspots that generate tsunamis for Hawaii here.
Yep, that one's on the list for sure.
So yeah, that's one thing that having the eruptive lull gives us a chance to do, is cover tsunamis in more detail than we would otherwise. So that's great, coinciding with Tsunami Awareness Month now. But let's turn to just note the other events in our community this month, or upcoming in this next week in particular. So in a national park, There are a couple events here coming up. Let me scroll down to note that next week, Tuesday, After Dark in the Park, 11 p.m. I'm sorry, April 11th at 7 p.m. The Visitor Center is a virtual visit to the Subaru telescope. So that will be interesting. We'll see if we can possibly bring that to you guys. We'll have to wait and see. On Wednesday, April 12th, 10 a.m. to noon, at the Ohia Wing across from Critterim Drive, there is lei hulu, the fine skill of Hawaiian feather lei making. So that is going to coincide with the Merry Monarch Festival as well, which is going to be next on our list here. There are other events happening further in the month there, like Tweet Tweet Hooray at Kahuku, April 15th, Saturday. That is focused on the Hawaiian akepa, Hawaiian honey creeper there. And then further beyond, going to National Park Week at the end of April. Let's just leave that aside for now, because that's enough for the next week. As well, the National Park has released, coinciding because there are quite a lot of hula dancers, hula halau, coming to Kilauea and connecting with the place. And quite often they are making ho'okupu. These are offerings. Ways to connect to the place, and the National Park has released this 12-minute video that describes in great, fascinating detail the protocols, the parameters, like all the different details, and it's really great to hear from the experts what is involved in a ho'okupu there. So this is also posted on hawaiitracker.com. It's on the website here as well from the National Park, and hope you guys can check that out if you are interested in that. This is season 2 of the Hawaiian culture videos from Hawaiian Volcano National Park. Action of creating growth, that's the definition of ho'okupu there. And the first episode released already here this week, right? Featuring Hui Hui Kanalehe Mossman, Olae Mide, and Makani Greg. And there will be another episode coming out in the near future on lava tubes. We'll cover that when that comes up. Ohivai. And season 1 had 3 episodes, so maybe a 3rd episode that comes up here as well. And we'll cover that as it comes up. So the videos are also on a park YouTube channel, and they are now, this season, also streaming on Big Island Television, airing in more than 6,000 hotel rooms on the island of Hawaii, and on Spectrum Channel 130, which is really great to see them broadening their audience there. So that's the video. I did mention this already. The Merry Monarch Festival is coming up next week, officially from this coming Sunday, April 9th onwards, right, with the performances starting on Wednesday, April 12th. So that's less than 1 week away, so that'll happen before our next update. And barring any other activity on a volcano or coverage we need to make, we'll probably keep next week's similarly, try to keep it to a little bit shorter, because these performances start at 6 p.m. there, right? So, and when it does come up, for those of you guys who are not on island, the official broadcaster is Hawaii News Now. It will be streaming it online. Here's their live stream countdown: 5 days, 23 hours, 59 minutes away. Right, just coming up there. So that's the community events that we have coming up. And apart from our thank yous, that's it for today, Dane.
All right. Well, yeah, I want to thank everybody for tuning out today. I mean, especially when there's not a whole lot going on. You know, the viewers like you help drive more people here. The like, shares, subscriptions all help with that algorithm on all the platforms that we use. Want to also thank County of Hawaii. They their Vibe grant program and their support of this type of content, as well as our written and other projects that we have going. Do want to thank some of the supporters that tuned in today. We had a big donation come in from Tim Hazeltine at $100, no comment. I really appreciate that. Skyget Ed came through with a $20 super chat, said, time to share a beer with you guys. Mahalo much. White Pod, appreciate it there. We also had Chrissy come through with a $20, just says thank you. And also a $20 from Brenda Palmatier. Appreciate all the support there, guys, and gals. Awesome. Thank you so much. And we don't have many questions. We're talking a little bit just about potentially where the next Kilauea eruption could take place. We're still talking Summit region, but does that mean caldera necessarily?
Yeah, I mean, most likely in the caldera, because the caldera takes up most of the summit region. But we've seen eruptions just outside of caldera on the upper blocks, like right on a rim as well. So that's certainly possible too. It does seem more likely to come up within the caldera, but now you have that big pool of magma sitting in that collapse pit. So we'll have to wait and see, really, right? But it's definitely the summit and not anywhere outside of there. It seems most likely, unless something changes in the next weeks and we see that propagate across monitoring signals. We're not seeing that right now.
Right. We did have one question. Might as well. It's been a little while since we answered it. So with all the activity that's been going on since 2019 under Pahala on the earthquakes down there, is it expected that magma might actually rise, or is this a feeder system for Kilauea and Mauna Loa?
Yeah, it's a feeder system, and magma is rising through the feeder system, and that's what's keeping Mauna Loa and Kilauea active, right? And so that's kind of the we're showing GPS plots and all the signals near the summit of Kilauea, showing that it's swelling and all that. Where's all that stuff coming from? It's coming from that pipeline down from Pahala through that network, not just the Kilauea summit, but other parts where magma collects, whether it's the deep rifts of Kilauea, whether it's Mauna Loa, whether it's Kīlauea, Loihi, probably going all those places. And it's just a matter of like how it adjusts and pressurizes and where does it actually need to break out to erupt and not passively fill, as it also does underground too. So pretty complex down there, but the simple answer is a little bit of both. Magma is coming up, but it's coming up through the feeder system, not coming up straight up. It comes up and bends way sideways to come under Kilauea, and then bends sideways to go under Mauna Loa, and sideways under Loihi as well, coming out Kilauea.
Right. All right. Well, yeah, we really don't have much questions. It is about that time, or just over the 1 hour mark. So appreciate everybody that tuned in today, and we will be back next Thursday at 5 p.m. unless something happens, and we will go live. Can always happen, but right now maybe not on the radar. But hey, it's happened before. All right,
Yeah.
but that does it for me right now. Check us out on Hawaii Tracker on the Facebook group. Check us out at hawaiitracker.com as well. And that'll be it for me.
Yeah, thanks, Dane. Yeah, just kind of restate what he said there. The same, I mean, it could happen at any point in time. We'll just enjoy it while it doesn't and catch up on our other stuff. And it's pretty certain at some point we'll be back unexpectedly because it does erupt again. And just a matter of time. Once again,
Yep.
So later or sooner. We don't mind it if it's a little later because we got plenty of other stuff to catch up on as well. But if it's sooner, We'll be here as well. And we'll be here regardless every week, including next week, Thursday. So thank you guys once again. Thanks for all those awesome donations. Thanks for following us, liking, sharing, subscribing. From HawaiiTracker.com, until next week, he's Dane DuPont. I'm Philip Ong. Aloha, everyone.